we only try to do one thing, and that is space planning or floor plans really well. And we do it we generate floor plans and we edit them or create them from scratch. And I think when you are very focused as we are, then you can do a very good modeler that helps architect creating floor plans very fast. You can get all your key figures out, square footage, check accessibility and so on. And that's the only thing we do, and we do it better than any software out there.
What happens when a rock musician becomes an architect? Today, on Buildings 2.0, we sit down with Jesper Wallgren, architect and co-founder of Finch, the AI-powered tool helping architects plan spaces faster and design with more freedom. Jesper shares how tinkering with Grasshopper turned into a product used by firms like Skanska and Gensler, and what it's like to really blend creativity with computation. In this episode, you'll hear how Finch bridges human intuition with AI precision, why the best design tools break their own rules, and what it's like to go from billing hours to building software. If you're an architect, designer, or founder curious about where the future of design tools is headed, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Buildings 2.0. Today I have a very special guest, Jesper Wallgren, architect and co-founder at Finch. Jesper, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me here. Happy to join.
Jesper, you are a startup founder at the intersection of design, technology, startups, the architectural practice. Super excited to dive into all of that. But before we get into the mechanics, take us back. Why buildings? How'd you end up there?
Yeah, so I think I've always liked math and been good at math. When you're a kid, you maybe don't know what to do with it. I got some creative friends in my teens and started a rock band. That was really fun, and I learned a lot about being creative, writing songs and recordings and so on. And then when I realized that I'm probably not going to be a rock star, I was thinking, what can I do that is very creative and still I can have use for my math skills. So then I decided to become an architect, and that was great fun, attending architecture school. And then I think it was on third year or something, someone introduced me to Grasshopper, and I was just like, what am I going to do with this? But as soon as I start tinkling a little bit with it, I just fell in love. Yeah. And then I built everything in Grasshopper, and I think that was the start of what then turned into Finch as well. I think that is
Yeah. Well, I mean, talk to me a little bit about that. So from tinkering with Grasshopper and computational design, there's obviously a lot from that to where you are today. But was there an aha moment where you thought, okay, well, this is cool, now it should be a business? Or I suspect, was there a series of aha moments? What was that process like?
Yeah. So there was a series of aha moments, I would say. I think when I started with Grasshopper in school, I was doing it in CETA in Copenhagen. It was the first master's program that dealt with a lot of this computational design and so on. So during my thesis project, it was obvious that the examinators did not know anything about parametric design because it was really early. It didn't went very well, to be honest. But I figured let's go ahead and apply for some job. But my heart was not in it, so I decided to start my own company. And there I just forced Grasshopper into everything, basically. We were deciding small villas and so on, everything with Grasshopper, and it basically turned into our own kind of BIM tool, built with Grasshopper living inside Rhino. And then one day I decided to start sharing videos of my prototypes and figured, because everyone was sharing things on Instagram. Instagram was not new, but I mean it was not what it is today. So I figured I'll post some of my Grasshopper script and maybe some other Grasshopper enthusiasts out there think it's cool. And I did. It got some. Got a couple of likes. I got in touch with a lot of nice people. But then I posted a video called Adaptive Plan, and just thousands of people, started to like it. And all of a sudden, big companies like Skanska and Gensler and so on started calling us. And what are you doing over here in Sweden? Can we use that? And that's where we figured, okay, here we're onto something. Let's just fold architecture company. Because then we were, I think, 5 architects, but me and my wife, who's the CEO of Finch, just said, let's just dig in, go into tech. Let's see what happens. And that was really exciting, and we never looked back.
So really quick, for those that maybe don't know what Grasshopper is, unpack that for us. So I actually had a professor in architecture school who was so vehemently opposed to parametric. He's a little old school, and he would say things like, all these Grasshopper scripts and ladybugs and all this stuff.
Yeah.
These are all what is it? Problems looking for a solution, I think it was, or something like that,
Yeah.
or solutions looking for a problem. I guess he didn't quite understand like why it was necessary. So in your view, what's the fundamental shift in the way that architects can design buildings through, I guess in this case, computational design?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Grasshopper parametric design, but I also think your professor might be onto something, because when it comes to architecture, I think Grasshopper or any parametric tool is extremely efficient when it comes to, for example, like designing a facade system, designing if you have thousands of customized joints in this one, it's just tremendous at doing that. But I think when it comes to designing a building, there's always, you have the overall system, but then there's always a lot of places where you have to kind of break the rules in this system. And that is the tricky thing. And Finch started out very much as a parametric tool in the beginning, very linear kind of system. But then a couple of years in, when we realized, okay, we're doing a tool for architects, creative people, then there was a shift in how we thought about Finch. This needs to be modular, that you can, have the parametric things or nowadays AI things, but you always need to be able to go in and break the rules and customize it a little bit here and there to create the architecture of it. So I think that was a big thing for us, leaving this kind of linear thinking that Grasshopper has.
Yeah. How do you think about the broader umbrella of just building modeling software? It has both a very long history, you know, uh, history, and
Yeah.
going back to 90s, 80s, with some obvious legacy players. And you also just in general just have 3D modeling software for objects, elements, and across different sectors, and visual effects and things like that. When building tooling for architects or
Mm.
engineers, what specific frameworks do you think about when building product for this sector?
Yeah, so we only try to do one thing, and that is space planning or floor plans really well. And we do it we generate floor plans, and we edit them, or create them from scratch. And I think when you are very focused, as we are, then you can do a very good modeler that helps architect creating floor plans very fast. You can get all your key figures out, square footage, check accessibility, and so on. And that's the only thing we do, and we do it better than any software out there. But we're also not doing a ton of stuff that, like, for example, like SketchUp and Rhino, that are super powerful, the 3D modelers, and they're doing that really, really well. So our idea is that we let the software do that really well, and then we just have extensions to them. So you send your math from Rhino, Grasshopper, Revit, or whatever you prefer, and then we do the floor plans, and then we send it into Revit as a BIM model.
Yeah, that's actually a really key strategic move you made. So essentially deciding the things that you're not going to do to make
Yeah.
sure that you're focusing on delivering a kind of a small subsect of incredibly powerful services. I guess in that vein, what has been the challenges so far for architects in 2D space right now? For those living in CAD right now, like an
Yeah.
AutoCAD, what's perhaps the biggest barrier to thinking beyond AutoCAD right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of new companies or startup that doing new cool things, and there's a lot of them out there. We are one of them, of course, have underestimated the power of a great modeler. Because when you're selling to architects, they're playing their CAD tool as an instrument. I mean, they are very skilled and efficient. It is a craft, and launching something if we look at Finch, our core business or core feature is to be able to generate floor plans. But we will never generate, or never, but probably not generate a floor plan that is 100% what the architect wants, because they want make it their own, and so on. And then the modeling tool becomes very important. And I think if you are an architect working in AutoCAD or Revit, you're very happy with your tool, it's very snappy and so on. Then you don't want to change to another tool that doesn't have that kind of modeler, basically. So I think we and a lot of other companies underestimated how hard it is to build a great modeler, and especially in the browser as we done. It was very hard. Now we manage. Now it's great. It's snappy. It can handle big projects and so on. But it was it was a big challenge.
Right. I mean, how do you, as a leader in a technology company, how do you navigate kind of the differentiation between, of course, there's the legacy tools. These are, I really liked how you framed it, right? Like these are architects that see their tools as their instrument. So kind of introducing a new one is asking quite a lot of them as they're kind of used to their existing instrument. But how do you think about differentiating yourself? You started to allude to like the things that you don't do as a starting point. But in the 2D space, what's a gap right now in the market that's just being massively underserved?
Yeah, I would say I was reading up a little bit about the LOD, like LOD 2, 3, 400 today, because I've noticed that our editor has become more and more complex, and we can handle more and more complex structures, basically. And I think where we are at with Finch is somewhere around LOD 300, I would say. And I think there's a lot of tools that doing LOD 100 and 200 really well. SketchUp, Rhino, Forma, whatever, where you can do a math and so on. And then we have Revit and ArchiCAD that is almost, I would say, doing LOD 350 or 400 even, better. But they here in the middle, I would like to call it, we're inventing a new word here, but it's like BIM Light for architects. We don't have much there. It's very conceptual tool or very heavy tools like Revit. And I mean, Revit is great at a number of things, but maybe not. It was never intended to be a sketching tool. I mean, it had always been, the intention was to build a great documentation tool, as I have understand it. So I think there is a little gap there in the middle,
and so
we try to fill it.
And that's really interesting. And so I assume that with that kind of informs how you think about your go-to-market. So how do you think about connecting Finch to where architects might be in the life cycle of a design of a project? When can they think about using Finch?
Yeah, I would say as soon. I mean, we started with residential or multifamily buildings. That's our niche. We're looking into office right now, and we'll be launching that in the beginning of next year. But I would say as soon as you start a project. And so the first sketches is not done in Finch. It might be done in Forma or Rhino or, the volume kind of. But as soon as you start doing the space planning, it's much more efficient doing it in Finch than any of the other tools, I would say.
But, I was taking a look at your website just now. And I mean, one of the things that stands out to me is just like the level of attention to detail. So in addition to the software, actually needing to be functional and working, of course, there's a certain level of clarity, I think, that your team clearly appreciates, which I think is symbolic, right? Architecture isn't just, purely functional, right? It has to kind of have aesthetic qualities here. What design qualities do you gravitate to when thinking about designing a product for architects?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think we're just not trying to get in the way of the creative process. When a project is designed, Finch is not the star. The architect, the developer, whomever designs it, is the key player here, and we are building a great tool to help them do it as well as possible. So we're trying to really help them being a tool, and how we think about this tool in general is that if you don't need to see the button right now, you should not see it. There is some freedom of just a big canvas and a pen, basically. So we're trying to make our tool as intuitive and as simple as possible. For example, all lines that intersect in Finch always becomes splitted automatically, so you don't need to trim things and so on. You can just remove one of them, and these kind of small things. Sometimes sometimes we maybe overdo it and, rethink the whole, because people are used to some tools, but we're trying to, make you able to model a plan with just like a handful of tools instead of this 30 that you might want to chamfer it with a strange shape. No. We're trying to keep it simple where we are right now, at least.
Right. I'm fascinated by the evolution of our tools. Back when we were in CAD, and I appreciate that much of the industry is in CAD.
Yeah.
We would draw a line, another one,
Yeah.
another one, and make a wall. We later moved into 3D space where we kind of started to extrude certain objects. What's the next evolution of design and generating things? We're going from drawing lines to extruding shapes to what is this next kind of evolution looking like? I appreciate that you're at the intersection of AI and
Yeah.
tooling. How are we going to be designing in the future?
Yeah, I think in general, AI is very good at just produce massive amounts of data. And I think just as we see with the text, I mean, LLMs and so on has come very far, and yeah, of course the image generation and so on as well. And I mean, it's so much easier to get using Mid Journey to get a nice image out. It just goes so fast. But at some point, you always need to, learn how to control this different intelligences and a kind of. I would think that the profession might go more of kind of have a curating role than, and even even so when we were drawing by hand, it was a lot about the craft. You had to learn, how to choose the correct line, the weight, and so on. I would say the more intelligent the tools becomes, you will probably more be like the curator that has a vision for the project, and then the tools help you to achieve it. A little bit like maybe if you're running your own architecture firm and have 10 skilled employees, then your role might be, this is where I want to go, and then you trust that your employees can do this and trust their craft. In the same way, I think we will trust the tools in the long run.
Yeah. Do you I've got a thought here. You tell me why I might be right or wrong. I think that what architects kind of gravitate to today that feels very in line with their core responsibilities of laying out space
Mm.
planning, deciding the relationships of rooms, of walls, of doors, windows, etc. Tell me why I'm wrong here, but if what makes an architect great is an understanding of the different complexities and factors and criteria that are compliance based, but are also about materials, but then are also about culture and program, and then are also performative. I mean, these are like if you kind of study the various eras, right, from modernism to postmodernism to parametricism, like these are just kind of uniquely different perspectives and all important to consider.
Mm.
Why is it that AI won't get there? Meaning, like, yes, it is complex and it's a very complex set of considerations that are about local compliance and feeling and materiality and all of these things. But isn't there a world where, with enough context, an AI could also make decisions considering all of these complex factors eventually? They're thus making it possible for AI to essentially lay out space for us?
Yeah, I think so. I think that comes to basically every profession. I think sooner or later AI will be able to do everything. Then the question is, do we want to? That is, of course, a more philosophical question. One of our employees had been to a art exhibition with AI art, and she said something really interesting. Yeah, it was cool, but it was also really boring. I mean, it has been generated by AI. No one had spent time on it, and it was something really interesting. She
Mm,
was kind of, there was no process behind it, or she just thought it was boring. And I think that
right,
was, sometimes you just want to see a painting produced by a human being,
right,
and I think
right.
that goes for a lot of things around us. But I think you're right. Sooner or later, AI will be able to
Yeah.
design a building. Will
Mm,
probably also be able to, do an operation on a human being.
mm.
I don't know, but
It brings up an interesting thought, and I think about this often. One of the things that my team at IPX is working on is we 3D model buildings from scan to BIM all by hand. And after doing several thousand of these, we've trained data sets to automatically produce these 3D models. Now, as you can imagine,
Yeah,
it's taking a lot of time
yeah,
and a lot of intelligence and nuance from humans. But we finally gotten to a point where the engine itself is producing pretty darn good architectural models from just a point cloud. Um,
congratulations.
yeah, no, I appreciate it, and yeah, lots to geek out on there. But I say that because the irony, though, is that while it's good, it's certainly not perfect. And I
Yeah,
imagine a world where, of course, everyone is interested in automated modeling or whatever. But I think that the real premium is actually in the future, maybe in a year or two from now, actually selling the fact that an architect had
yeah,
actually done the model. The irony is they're like kind of going back to humans kind of being the premium, if you
yeah.
will, for all of its imperfections and whatnot. Uh,
I mean, we see that already. I mean, if you look at the glasses, I mean, this kind of or I don't know, handcrafted things can be, or bags or whatever can be very premium already now. Although machines might do it much more perfect and
yeah,
and
yeah,
so on. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, maybe.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Are there any like on that note? Are there any like features, capabilities, things that you see are cooking that you're most excited about for Finch or what you're building?
Yeah, I mean, our floor plans are getting better and better. I think this is really exciting area. I mean, we have our own proprietary models, and we always, trying to make them better and better. And of course, I'm asking ChatGPT and Midjourney once a week to generate the floor plan, just see where it is.
Right.
And while and so on, of course, can do great things. They are not specialized in architecture, so it's also really exciting to be in kind of on the forefront on this little niche.
There's a lot there. I mean, so how I mean, again, I appreciate it's proprietary, but like as you're developing the machine, what are you seeing some of the key factors in improving performance? I mean, is it just like feeding it a lot of architectural plans? Is it some sort of user based kind of feedback component? I mean, what's the contributing factor to
Yeah,
improving?
yeah, but feeding in more plants is of course a big part of it, but also just making it more efficient. And I mean, we do a number of different techniques, and without giving away all of the secret sauce, I mean, we have one model generate this kind of things and another model generate this, and then you put them in a chain after each other, see if it works, switching place of things and so on, and we keep on iterating and experimenting on these kind of things. And I would say, I mean, even if have been doing it for a while now, I would say there's still, we haven't come to the point in general in our industry like the large language models or the diffusion model has come to, where things is exploding.
You developed a product that's used by some of the most renowned firms in the world. How do you think about the process of, so one thing is building the product, another
Yeah,
thing is selling the product, especially when there's incumbent legacy tools out there. How do you do it? I mean, especially as a startup company,
yeah,
I appreciate I'm in the same boat here where you're often approaching large firms with existing tools and
yeah.
you're telling them that you got a better tool for something. How do you go about thinking about the sales process of getting this tool into these firms' hands?
Yeah, I think you should sell your tool or charge for your product as soon as possible, as soon as you can, because when you start, or when someone is paying for your product, then you also get the truth. If you're giving it away for free, people try to be nice, but when people have give you X amount of dollars, then they will give you the truth if it doesn't work as they. But then having that said, one thing I would say all of our customers has in common is that they are progressive and brave companies that dares to bet on new tech, new smaller companies. They know that the future, to stay on the forefront, they will also, need to experience new thing and play around with new tools. And that is something I really appreciate, that they are brave enough to bet on a company like Finch, because all companies are not, and it's easy not easy, very hard actually. It's important to find these kind of companies.
I think part of what you might be understating is just like how difficult it is to, number one, build a product that is good. Number two
Yeah,
is get it into the hands of buying customers. All of this, I appreciate you, and your team is having to navigate this. Talk to me a little bit about your startup journey itself. You alluded to this kind of aha moment where it became clear you needed to build this, but from the time you started
Yeah.
till now, there's a lot of lessons learned there. How's that journey been?
Yeah, it's been intense. I mean, we transitioned from we had an architecture firm. We were selling hours or billing hours, like a lot of, and
Right.
then we needed to raise capital all of a sudden and sell a dream to get funding for 18 months or a certain
Right.
period of time. So that there was of course a lot of things to learn. And then in the beginning it was me and Pamela. We both architects, and so we understood very quickly on that we needed one tech person as well in the founding team. And we found a guy called Martin. It was a great match personality wise and so on. So we decided to just split the company into three parts, one for me, one for Pamela, one for Martin. There was some discussions in the beginning, since me and Pamela, were a couple of months earlier on, should we have more percentage than Martin and so on. But then in the end, I learned that in my days in the rock band, I think if you want to build a strong team, I mean, just put everyone should have as much skin in the game and just share all the pain and trouble as well as the upside. So I think that was a very wise decision to do. And another thing I think it's important as well, when you decide to start a company or a startup or whatever, I think there should at least be, in our case, we're building a tech company, there should of course be a tech guy there. There should be at least one person that really likes money, want to sell the things, want to see, and then a third one that has a strong domain knowledge of what you're building or really interesting in customers. I think that's key, because it is product and tech, but sales, the purpose of a company is making money. What to do with the money, if you just keep improving the product, you give it away for charity or whatever, but you need to be interested. One person needs to be interested in money in the company at least.
Right. Okay, so note to self for those design thinking prospective founders out there: get some variation of tech expertise, domain expertise, money expertise, and ideally build a team around that.
Yeah, and I think it's also good if you're not, three tech dudes in the same age. I think different cultural background, different age, and different gender, and so on is always a big. It's a great thing, and especially if you selling to people, architects, that it's both women and men. It's very diverse. It's all. It's. I think there's something being very similar to your customer.
Right. I'm curious. In your experience, you now have the benefit of a few years now building the company. What do you think has been the most challenging part of it? You've mentioned several things that are difficult, but in your view, what should aspiring founders look out for that perhaps maybe you didn't consider at a time?
I think the most challenging thing about running running a company is that you as a founder or CEO, I'm not the CEO of Finch, by the way, but you are kind of the last person. So when things are working, you don't have to do much. But when things are not working, then it will end up at your table, which means that you have a table full of things not working. So a lot of time. Of course, it's great fun, but most of our founders' times is fixing things that doesn't work. Whether it's tech, whether it's employees, whether it's funding, things that doesn't work, that ends up on us. So you should be prepared for that.
I like how you frame that quite a bit. And I think it seems very characteristic. I think you're understating the amount of problems, but I guess that's kind of what you get into, right? When you start I guess a question for you is, with everything that's evolving, between technology itself, the market itself, customers and their expectations, in 5 years from now, how are we going to be like designing? What's the promised land look like in 5 years when we sit down to design a space? Visualize that for me. What's it look like?
Yeah, I think it will go much faster. We will produce much more data in a shorter amount of time. I think we also will know much more about what we're producing. For example, if I tell my machine to help me design a building here, you will produce a lot of data and you will be able to see how is the performance of this building. This is also something we will get better and better at. I mean, just back up 20 years or 10, I mean, the sustainability aspect was not as big as it is now. Of course, now it takes a lot of work to calculate how sustainable a building is. All of these kind of things just becomes more and more automated. So I think we will be able to make much more informed decision much earlier on in the process. And as I was talking about earlier on, then you also get more of a curating role for this whole project and more where do I want to go with this project? What do I think will become a great project that will serve the inhabitant, the city, and the planet, basically.
Jesper, this has been really fun. I think you've taken us on a journey here from the days of tinkering in Grasshopper to a series of aha moments to get to Finch, building out the team, building out a product amidst evolving technology, raising funding in the process. For those that want to continue following along your journey, reach out to you, use Finch as a product. How do they find you?
Jesper Wallgren. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. There's where we still posting a lot of videos, and of course finch3d.com. You can also just go in there and reach out to us.
Awesome.
Just send us a message, and we usually respond or put you in the right direction.
Jesper, it's been really fun. Appreciate you joining.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.